Hello, my name's Helen Quomby, and I'm just introducing hopefully the beginnings of a series of chats between myself and my lovely friend Bethan Fletcher. Some of you will already know Beth, some of you might not, but the intention that we set to have these little chats between ourselves is because we've both sort of followed over the last few years what some of you might refer to or call as a more spiritual path. And sometimes that can look and feel a little bit challenging at times. Sometimes it can feel great. And sometimes you might not realise that you're actually on a spiritual path. Don't want to label anything as such because it sort of squashes it and contains it, but it's really a journey of life, and it's maybe an explanation of moving from one aspect of your life to another. And it's often only when you look back over your life that you can see from a different perspective or see things more clearly as to why you might have gone through certain things, why certain things have happened. But we're sort of coming together because we've realised we've followed what we call like a spiritual path. A journey about learning about ourselves. Some call it an awakening, some call it the ascension process. Everybody's on some sort of journey, it never really ends, but we just wanted to have a general chat between ourselves because we are very good friends. We want to keep it quite light, but to bring some truth through, if I can talk. So because this is our first venture in doing this, who knows what's going to happen. We might have a few technical hitches along the line. My dog's already barking. So, you know, just if you want to go and get yourself, we're calling it at the moment a cuppa and a chat. It's Wales meets Yorkshire. So you're very, very welcome to join us, to just, you know, sit yourself down, have an 11s or whatever you're doing at the moment, and just listen. And we're just, you know, hoping to allow things to unfold. So in the hope that it might help to bring you some peace, some aha moments, some realizations, whatever shape or form this comes. But overall, we just want you to relax and maybe enjoy it. So welcome. So Beth, that's my piece of the jigsaw out of the way. I met you a few years ago now, didn't I? And I think it's safe to say that although we'd never had any knowing contact whatsoever before that moment, we were introduced to one another, and immediately there was like this very deep knowing. It was almost like we just wanted to hug one another. But we weren't allowed to because we were sort of taken off in different directions physically. But there was that immediate connection. So today we're sort of going to open the stage really for you to just share wherever you want to start that process off. You know, what's happened to you over the last few years that's brought you to this point now in your journey, and what you might call your more spiritual path. Well, for me it's all spiritual. It's just that we're not always aware or open to that until certain points in our lives. So I'll leave it to you, Beth. You might want to start off and, you know, explain who you are, that kind of thing.
Well, my name's Bethan Fletcher, and I've done a range of things. I suppose you'd call it, I'm a healer, but it started off with reflexology. Then I went on to do a Reiki Master, then angelic practitioner, and it's just started to evolve. But this, I think, for me, started round about 2009, just when my mum died, really. And I had, or always had, a very, very strong, what would you call it, a more religious background, where like chapel, and then I moved from chapel to a more organised Christian based, which was quite suffocating, but it took me a while to realise that. And I was battling with that feeling of that identity you have as a Christian or spiritual person, because I wanted to step away from it, because from what I could see, I didn't feel it were not right for me then, or there were flaws in the religious circle I were in that I didn't sit right with me at the time. And then my mum died, and I went through quite, I'd say, although I wasn't aware of it, but like a bit of an awakening that week my mum died, because if anybody have sat with anybody who is passing, sometimes they just pass peacefully, other times they're fighting the life that's leaving them. And I was sat there and I could almost see as if her spirit was leaving, and I was really shocked, and I just could not get my head around it, coming from the traditional, more Christian-based teaching. And I think from that point on, it was a search for questions. It showed me that I knew what I was doing were right, that I needed to follow another path. I knew I had a deep connection spiritually, and I knew I had a lot of compassion and empathy for people from a little girl, from 5-year-old, and that probably stands for quite a few people, isn't it? You know, like when you're little, you know things, don't you? You know. So that basically is it. So 2009, I worked like you in the NHS, but on the admin side. Left that employment, retrained as reflexologist, and then that comes into about 2013, thereabouts, isn't it, where we met, when we were working in the same wellbeing centre. You doing your physio at the time and Bowen's, and I doing my Reiki and my reflexology. So we did click. We did click straight away, and even though you say you're honest, but I don't think it's only when you sit back, and this is probably for you as well, you actually look back and you can see the little coincidences that have led you along the path. And some people may be watching this, maybe feeling they feel different, or they're experiencing things different, or they prospects or whatever's, their outlook is different, and things start to change, and they're unsure of where to go or what to do with it, and that's how really, like, I've been on this journey, say 10 years, just over 10 years, and I think it's speeding up. I think people are awakening now, and some maybe not sure where to go with it, which avenue to go down. And this is the reason we decided that Helen and I would get together and explain how we've been on our journey, and we still, because it's never ending. It's going on and on and on. There's different things open for you, and you learn along the way. So somebody listening to us chatting may be feeling the same and just think, well, where do I go? What do I do? You know. So for me, I've gone on to train as a yoga teacher, but I do more of the spiritual side of the yoga and meditation, and yoga nidra, and it's just about helping women mainly, because women, you know, I have had a few men in my classes, but it's the women that tend to stay with me, and I just feel that the small group under now, I feel there is a bigger group out there, not that needs, well, just need to know that you're not on your own really, and that everybody's at different stages. So and like I said, we're all still journeying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So can I ask you, Beth, what looking back now then, if there ever is like a before and after point, there isn't really, but what would you say is the main, or one of the main differences for you, if you were to look at yourself before your realization of stepping onto a spiritual path? How did you see the world before, and then what has it meant to you? You know, what spirituality brought to you?
I think always before I'd say New Age spirituality, before that, I think one thing I always felt, and I think a lot of us do feel this, that there's got to be something more to this life. There is something I should be doing on this planet. In my life, I'm far more than a mum, a wife, working. Like everybody else, you're bringing up your family as it was then. I had my Christian beliefs then, which are still with me quite strongly, but it's just veered on a different path. And so having that helped me a lot with raising a family and stuff like that. But I always felt there was something else, that I always felt like I used to contemplate like the earth we live in, and then realizing that every component in the earth, in the soil, in the air, in the moon, in crystals, is all in us, in smaller particles. And just think about things like that. And I was thinking, there's got to be more. And I just like, you just don't know where to go. But looking now, you start as you go along your path. And whatever path that is, it could be angels, it could be earth-based, nature-based, it could be tarot, it could be Wiccan, it could be any of the New Age, whichever path, it just follow it. I'd say follow it. Just go with your instincts. If it interests you, read it. It'll take you to another point, which it did with me. Now my outlook is quite grounded. I still have my connection spiritually, I feel, but I feel more grounded with everything else, with the earth. Excuse me. With the earth, with the truth.
Sorry, Beth, when you say you feel more grounded, are you meaning that in terms of a feeling a connection with the earth? Is that what you mean?
Yeah. it's like the whole. It's like when we see it as bits, like the earth, the sky, the moon, you, whatever, people, the human race, whatever, you all of a sudden, as you go along your path, things start just fitting together, and you start to see the whole picture, and then that makes you feel more grounded, connected. And it doesn't come, and I don't feel like that every day. I'm still journeying. I'm still journeying, and I still make mistakes. I still go off on tangents and think, what the hell did I get there for? It's only to come back and start again on something else. So it's never ending. But now I feel I'm not so restricted. I'm not in that box. There's no right or wrong way. There's no right or wrong way. And that it's all, basically, it comes from the heart. It's all heart-centered.
Yeah.
And I think that's where I am now. And I think you lose your judgments as well along the way. You like, it's like you have a big rucksack and you have all these preconditionings and all these thoughts and perceptions, and then as you go along your path, and it has its many twists and turns, you can just feel yourself discarding them.
Yeah.
And then you're only left with the real whole that means, you know, that light, that
Yeah.
something inside. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
lovely. So going back to your time in what we might call a more traditional role, you know, your background was NHS. Anybody who's maybe not from around here, you know, National Health Service. How did that look, and how did that feel? Did you get to a place of feeling uncomfortable in that? What was sort of led you up to that? What were you experiencing? Because I know that's part of my journey, that something I once loved, I couldn't quite understand why I was starting to feel uncomfortable, and it can be quite threatening and feels quite frightening, because obviously there can be things around security, our incomes,
Yeah.
very much rooted in all of that, because it's like, well, where do I go from here? You know, I've got a family to support, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So what did that get into that point of being uncomfortable? How did that journey look for you, and what did you do with it, if you know what I mean?
I got to a point with working in the NHS, and you go along with the job, and you to raise your family, and you pay your mortgage, and you have to put food on the table, and you want to give your family treats and holidays, and you have to, you know, if you've got children going through college or uni, you know, you need that money. So that is, but then you start looking at things and you start thinking, well, hang on, I just don't fit in with this anymore. I am exhausted with the constant changes, and in any job, I should imagine, they keep moving the goalposts. There's always something new. There's always more pressure. There's always that's how I started to feel. It may not have actually been like that, but for me, that is how I started to feel. And I thought to myself, what am I going to do with this? Where am I going? So it was just the last couple of weeks before my mum died. She died in the October, and just all of a sudden, this particular day, I woke up and I thought, what is the one thing I always wanted to do? And if I go right back, it was always to nurse. I always wanted to be a nurse. Never got there because I went down the secretarial route. So what basically is telling me there that I want to heal people, that I want to help people at the time physically to feel better and help them. Obviously, I felt too old to go into the nursing and all that. I thought, right, where do I go? What interests me? And reflexology at the time, because I'd had a couple of sessions. So I was just walking through my town, and in the local college, it just had last few places left on a reflexology course, bizarrely. So I didn't think about it. I went in with my credit card, paid for it, and then thought, oh, my neck. Oh, this is, oh, what do I do with all this now? And then I thought, and then my mum died, and I just thought, because bearing in mind I was living in Leeds, I still live in Leeds, and I'm originally from South Wales, so there were an awful lot of toing and froing that were starting to take its toll, because my mum had dementia, so the house had to be sold. She was in a nursing home, so I was toing and froing from a job to South Wales to look after the family back, and I just got to a point where I couldn't, and the grief of losing your mum and everything, I thought, I can't physically do this anymore. And not that it could be practical for many people, but for me at the time, it was right for me to just walk away. And I thought, I will have to get a job, and I have had various jobs with less hours, Specsavers, we won't go there. Stuff, little jobs like that, you know, in shops, and just enough to get some money in, and pay for my course. But not that I felt I was in chains then and locked into, because like you have a pension, it was a good job, it was you had your pension, and sometimes, although these are good packages, these are the very things that hold you back. And it's really hard to let that go, and it's brave. So anybody who's thinking of doing that, I totally get the hesitancy, because it's a massive step. Bit like you, Helen, isn't it? Because you were a physio for 20 so years, was it?
Yeah, I qualified in 1993. It was probably about 23 years.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is a big step, definitely. Do you mind me just asking? You said about you always wanted to sort of nurse. Was this sort of right back in your teenage years when you were sort of going on that path of, like, you know, you go through school, don't you?
Yeah.
And then we study for, well, mine was O levels at that time. That'll sort of be hint to our ages, really.
Yeah.
Did you know about it then? And if you did, what was it? What sort of issues prevented you doing what was really in your heart?
Well, from about 5 or 6, I always wanted to help. And my little friend, Brian, bless him, used to suffer fits. So it was in the 60s, and we were kids. We played on the road, and very often then Brian would be playing, and then he'd just have a fit. So my friends would run to his mum and say, "Oh, Brian's having a fit." I was always the one to run in and get the cushion and the blanket so that he were warm before his mum could come and sort him out. So from a very, very young age, I knew what I wanted to do. And one of my biggest heroines, although they say she could be a spy, I don't know, was Edith Cavell, who was the nurse. And she was a big inspiration to me, because I remember reading about her when I was about 11 or 12 in school. We'd done a project. And then that just fueled me, and that's what I worked for. Ultimately, to be a nurse, to become a midwife, it just went on. That's where I was going. And then through a couple of difficulties in high school, my mother decided, what did I want to be a nurse for? I don't understand this. Why don't you be a secretary? You'll get far more money. So she then, just at 14, sent me to a private secretarial college, which I absolutely hated. I bunked off for 2 weeks, but
Oh, you rebel.
and being a private school, of course, I wasn't there a week. So what did they do? They just rung me mum and said, like, well, Bethan was not in school, so that was it. I was in big trouble. But I hated it. I hated it. I didn't like the girls. And so it just went. I felt that was a crucial time for me at 14. And, you know, when you feel, and my friend Michelle, who were going to be a nurse with me, were going to go to college at 16 then, on a pre-nursing for 2 years or whatever. Can't remember. It's all so different now. And she actually is a practice nurse now,
right,
in our hometown, so in South Wales. And I have to say, at 16 when I left with my qualifications after a lot of coercing, and I did earn good money for a 16-year-old because of the skills I had, and that would have been in 1977. I left school. And I think the wages then, I think the average people that I knew were getting something like £18 a week, and I was on £29, which was a good wage for a 16, 17-year-old. So yeah, so that made me a bit unsteady then, really, through my life. I got married really young, too young. I don't know, but these, when I look back now, they're lessons. I obviously wasn't meant to be the nurse I wanted to be. But the feeling of help, obviously my role has been different, the same, but different. The helping, nurturing people is still a part of what I enjoy doing most.
Yeah. I was going to say to you, you know, have you brought some peace to that? Because the other question I was also going to ask you is, when your mum decided for you that you was going to take this different path, there's this thing, isn't there, about us being able to express our own needs or express ourselves in whatever shape or form. Did you feel as though you didn't have a voice then?
No, not at all. And I think, and I didn't, because nobody wanted to listen to me. I should be grateful because my mum's sending me to private school. How many people in the 70s could afford that? And she couldn't. I was only brought up in a little 2-bedroom terrace, and she worked full time to pay for this education, and I should be grateful. And then, yeah, you do lose your voice. You lose your voice. You lose
your identity.
Your identity, exactly. And it takes, you lose yourself then, because like you go into work, you have the protocols, your peers, you've like you're told how to think, and this is how we do this and this is how we do that, and that goes from your home life. And then I got married young, and again then I were moulded again, you know, within that relationship, which sadly we did eventually get divorced. So yes, it you know, I'm remarried now, but it's very it can completely unbalancing if you are a very soft person, or you're not very confident then anyway, and you don't have a self-esteem that's, you know, a really big ego, then these things are really hard to deal with, you know, because you completely lose who you are. And I think going on this spiritual path, and it's had its bad times and its real low points. And I still don't know exactly who I am. I'm still learning that, but I'm more happy with who I am. And I feel more confident in who I am than trying to be something you're not, basically. Isn't it? That's what it boils down to.
Yeah.
Basically.
So if there was, what would you say to anybody who might be resonating with you in your story, but like, you know, feeling as though they've no voice, or they're feeling a bit lost, or they've come to that place of searching, well, who am I actually? You know, what does it mean to know who I am? But what would you say to anybody? You know, what is any guidance? I know we all have to follow our own path, but is there anything, what's sort of like one of the things that you've learned along that path that's helped you get to finding yourself more?
We know ourselves better than we ever think we do. Ever. And somewhere inside there will be that little voice that is telling you that either something's not right with how you're feeling, or what's happening, or whatever. Just listen to that voice. You aren't going to make massive changes overnight, because this is a transformation, although I do think things are speeding up, but it's a transformation, and it's a transformation that's slow and steady. But if anybody all I would say to anybody, whatever you really have an interest in, it might be crystals, it might be, like I have one lady that comes to my class, just as an example, and she has now handed in a notice. Not that I'm not encouraging anybody to do this, obviously, but she is in a position to be able to do this. She's handed in a notice after working for 20 years as a manager in a HR role. And then she texted me the other day and said, do I know anything about crystals? So you know, like for her, she's come from a very demanding role now to being starting a path or an awakening, and now that's led her because she's starting to listen, just listen to yourself, and she's nurtured this interest in crystals. Then get the books, go on YouTube, look, just find out more. You may not follow that path, but it will lead you on another journey.
That's right.
Or you may stick with the crystals and find what you need.
That's right.
But follow your instincts. Listen to that gut feeling, because the gut feeling is the truth, is you, it's your essence. It's the little Helen or the little Bethan inside that's saying, excuse me, we don't want to do that anymore. Let's go and do some Reiki.
Yeah, it's not always an easy thing to do, is it? Because depending on how strong our conditioning has been, which comes from parents, our schooling, religion, our work, it can be so deeply hidden and embedded that it takes a bit of finding, doesn't it? Or it can do. Some people can really tap into it, but I suppose what's coming to me now is that sometimes we don't often realise how actually already tapped into that we already are. And it's often, isn't it, what comes easiest to us and most natural to us as the individual, we tend to devalue that and think, oh, that's just me, it's not worth anything, it doesn't mean anything. But actually it's that aspect, it's the bit that comes easy, that's the bit that we need to take note of, isn't it?
That's it. And yes, definitely, that is, it's the bit that's, as you say, easy, that you enjoy, that gives you pleasure, that makes you feel relaxed, and that is your true energy, that's your true self. And I do think, like we've started these chats, that we had to start somewhere with someone to help us along the way, didn't we?
Yeah, we did.
And I started my journey with a mutual friend that I met through the reflexology, because once you start, I came into contact with a lady who was a Reiki master, and then I went on to do the Reiki, and then that soul, or that circle of different, like you're in one structure, but when you're looking for another, or you're not sure of your step, when you start to take the step, little things start opening up, and people come into your journey on your life that helps you along the way. Now that lady I'm still in touch with, but I don't see her often. And then I found through that then was the yoga. So it was the yoga class I used to attend, the lady there who was quite spiritual, that I went on to teach, then learn. And then you get interested in nature, paganism, or whatever, earth-based, because I love the earth-based nature, trees. And have a look at my portfolio of trees. I mean, it is massive. Alan, my husband, goes mad. there's everybody when we're on holiday, and if we've gone with friends, they're taking, you know, the normal photographs where you're also going like this. I'm in the back taking this tree or mountain, and I come home and they say, do you have a nice holiday? Have you got any pictures? Oh yeah, I got loads of pictures, but nobody's in it, just trees and stuff. So I think yeah, so then you know, I got to know somebody a lot in there, in that setup with Wiccan, and then through another little venture in the Wellbeing Centre, notably tea room, I took over, which was a disaster. But anyway, that's another story. Came along Pamela, a friend of ours, mutual friend, who then you were drawn to, because that's what you were interested in, which is the medium side of things, wasn't it?
Yes, it was very much.
So she came into our lives then.
Yes.
And you stayed with that path a while, didn't you? I sort of fell back a bit.
Yeah.
Because although I enjoyed that journey,
yeah,
that wasn't particularly my bag, but it certainly was yours.
Yeah.
The channeling and the medium.
Yeah, there's a certain amount of exploration almost, isn't there? It's like, it's a bit like having a bag of sweeties as a child. There's all these different sweets and they all look nice, different colours and different wrappings. It's like, oh, I'll try a bit of that and that, you know.
Yeah.
And it is, I suppose, in a way, it is a bit like, it's not going backwards. It's possibly exploring what we might have done had we had that guidance of somebody who was very self-aware themselves, to look at all these different things, to follow the heart, because that's what it's about, isn't it? Is what is in your heart. And I think maybe you might agree with this, that we've probably moved more out of times now that we could get away with sort of not following our hearts in terms of having a job, having the income. Whereas now, if it's not in your heart, it's possibly going to start to feel much more challenging for you. Yes, we are in more heart-centered times. I think the Aquarian times, you can probably talk more about that, Bethan, can't you?
Yeah, we're in the Aquarian age, which when I was like, just briefly, when I went on with teacher training and Kundalini yoga I teach, we had a weekend on the Aquarian age, and I have to say, a lot of it went over my head because they were talking about I'd heard of the Aquarian age, and I remember the song from the 60s, This is the Age of Aquarius, and I just thought, what's this all about anyway? I went on and qualified, and then all of a sudden, like, when I sort of qualified, things, and I actually was teaching it because Yogi Bhajan, who was the guy behind the Kundalini yoga, although that's different now, we don't quote him much, but I have to say, he obviously knew his stuff, because he did say that the Aquarian age was coming round about the 2012, or it was the start of the new age, where previous we were in what they call the Piscean age, which was your industrialization. You know, the Victorians built the industry, and we've had an awful class system where there's rich, there's poor. But this new time that we were in now, the Aquarian age, it's more heart-centered. People are beginning to feel heart-centered, and we knew as teachers, because we were told on the teacher training that you will need to be forklifts for people, so you could raise them up so they could see what was going on, and understand the times we're living in, and to strengthen our central nervous system, which would be with the 5G, the technology we have invades us all the time and we don't realise. So the Aquarian age is what we're in now, and this is why more people are beginning to awaken. They don't might not understand what the hell is happening, or why they feel different when they would been doing something, but now all of a sudden it's not sitting right. It's starting to open you, first of all, I think, to appreciating and starting to look at yourself and give yourself that honour. It doesn't come naturally to us, and it still doesn't to me. I always, I mean, how many times do you get up in the morning and like you've only been up an hour and you've already told yourself off 4 times or something like that? Minimum. I said, why didn't I do that? Oh, I forgot to put the bin out. That was my fault. I knew I should have done. It's just stupid little things like this that we natter ourselves with all day. But it starts to, it does open from the heart centre. It does, you start to awaken the higher centres. It's, you will feel that shift, but you won't understand it. And this is why, for both of us, we've had some right moments, haven't we?
We have,
between us. But if you've been down, I've helped you, and if I've been down, you've helped me. And we could go a few weeks where we just send the odd text and don't actually get together. But we know we need one another. That injection of something I can't really put my finger on, but it's what your soul needs. And this is what people are finding when they'll read a quote on Facebook, and for some reason it gets them, and that is because it's speaking to that little Bethan or that little Helen inside. It's this little person that really wants to emerge out of these conditions, and it's not knowing where to start.
And I think probably what you've nicely brought us to, Beth, is really that connection is key, isn't it? Finding your tribe, and because we can all feel, even if we're, you know, it's like the old saying, we feel, even if you're surrounded by people, you can sometimes feel alone. However, a lot of sensitive people, it's not feeling alone. They're quite happy to be on their own in that respect. Well, and that's probably another conversation, but I would, for me, from what we've discussed now, the one thing that's probably come out, if I was to pass on anything to anybody else, is that if you're feeling it but you're feeling as though there's nobody you can talk to, trying to find somebody or a group of people that help to nurture you and help you to understand what's going on with you, or that just bring you some love and sense of joy. That is so important. Is there maybe one thing that you might pass on for somebody at this moment in time from what we've said, Beth? What's been, you know, what might help?
I would say just listen to yourself. If you are feeling things differently or seeing things differently, and especially with lockdown, this has been this is the start of things as we know it beginning to break down. Governments, societies are changing, and people are feeling fearful. But on the other hand, they're also pulling together now in their communities, which was not happening before. And this is just a start. And I think if you're feeling like that, I mean, is just listen to yourself, see what it is that intrigues you, or see if you want to find out more. There's loads of stuff on YouTube and Facebook. You can leave comments here, or both of us have our Facebook pages or whatever, if there's any further guidance. But we're not doing it just for that. We're just doing it as friends who came together because we were both going through a similar thing and didn't quite understand what was going on. And between us, we've sort of we've got our own paths to walk, but we have each other along that spiritual path. It's like the Trinity, isn't it, between us? Like, you've got yours, I've got mine, and then you've got this one thread that keeps us together. And I do think it's being with people you're comfortable and happy with, and that think like-minded. I think if you find somebody that speaks to that soul, whether it is a yoga teacher or something you listen to on Facebook or whatever, then that's fine. It's just the start, and just let it evolve. There's lots. Yeah. What would you say, Helen? What would you say?
Well, I think apart from finding your tribe, from what you've just been saying there, just before we sort of come to a close, is in any new beginning, there's a little bit of coming to terms with letting go of something.
Yeah.
It might be something or someone or a group. There can be a little bit of sense of sadness, loss and grief in that.
Yes.
And to know that that's a natural part, isn't it? A natural part of the process. But to honour that part of your life, if you're feeling a sense of loss, or that you're frightened of letting go. So just really not to force anything.
No.
Just to reassure you that yes, it can feel a little bit uncomfortable.
Yeah.
To let you know that that is a part of the process. But if you can bring a sense of gratitude, thanks and love for what has been, and for the lessons, for what's been brought to you, it probably helps you. It just sort of supports you on that transition phase, really, doesn't it? Would you agree?
Yeah. Yeah, I think you've put it quite beautifully, really. It is because things are changing. You do feel a grief or a sense of loss or vulnerability, I think, because you feel your path is unsure or uncertain. And really it isn't, because each time you listen to yourself and you just put one foot in front of the other, you do get stronger. And eventually, without rushing, those things that were in your conditioning will gently start to peel away.
Yeah.
But it's not something you can rush. Just go with the flow, enjoy the journey. That's what I would say. Be happy and grateful and thankful that you may be able to start a brand new beginning. And it's perfect. It's in bulk. It's the time of new beginnings now. It's that new energy. It's springtime coming. It's a lovely energy to start working with now. If that's what you want to do. Yeah.
That's lovely. Well, Bethan Fletcher, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. I've enjoyed it.
We've chatted quite some time. We tend to go on our little chats together, don't they? So
I know. We said 30 minutes. Now they've got to suffer us an hour.
Oh, thank you, Beth. And
thank you
to anybody who, at whatever point, it is said that even if something's been recorded you know, and you only come across this in a year's time, 2 years time, just allow it to be. If it's resonating with you, know that it's meant to be for you now. But thank you for listening. If you do have any comments, please feel free to comment below. We are going to be back again. We're going to have another chat, and we're just, you know, holding the intention of just allowing whatever is to emerge from these talks will do. Our intention is just for us to enjoy, to share, to open our hearts. But yeah, that's it. Thank you. So thanks very much, Beth. We'll be back together again, won't we?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yes, another cup of tea. Yeah, lovely.
We are recording. I'll just mention the date. We are recording this on the 4th. It's Thursday today, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Thursday the 4th of February 2021. So that's just to put it in some context of Earth time, really. Okay. So take care, everybody. Hope you can join us again soon.
Oh yeah, we'd love to see you. Bye. Thank you, Helen. Bye, everyone.